Texan we are today in our blue jeans at work. I love us right now.
Yeah, well, you're from Fort Worth, right?
I was gonna say, I knew you were a Texan, but I didn't know. We both grew up in Fort Worth.
Well, I was born in Austin. My mother and father are both from Fort Worth. They met at Richland Hills High School.
Oh my gosh!
And so, yeah, I mean, we're meant to be together.
That's so crazy that I know Richland Hills. I didn't go to high school there, but I did a lot of my other schooling there. But yeah, I loved growing up there. It was a fun town. Anyway, you love art, you love music, acting, like you're always kind of in the artistic field. Are you kind of always looking for the next artistic thing to do? Do you like finding hobbies like that?
Well, I don't have any hobbies. I do.
What?
I don't.
I just read your insurance, bro. You have a time.
My whole life is my hobby. Like, I subscribe to that theory. If you just do what you love, you don't have to work a day in your life. You know, that's kind of been the story of my life.
Yeah.
I started acting when I was a kid. I loved it. I got to keep doing it. Dead Poets Society came out and opened up channels for me to work. And then I started a theater company, and I started writing. I started making documentaries, and I just kind of tried to keep myself interested.
Did Dead Poets Society, did that get you into poetry? Is that what kind of turned you on to? Because you were young doing that.
No, you know what got me into poetry? Believe it or not, my mother used to have this game she would play with me, which is that I really loved going to the movies, but I wasn't allowed to go to the movies unless I'd read a book outside of school. And so, for example, yeah, she was really clever, and I had all these deals with her that if I could, you know, get a decent grade, I would have more freedom and that kind of thing. And I didn't have a decent grade, and I went to my English professor once, and I said, listen, how can I'm getting a B in your class. I gotta have an A because my grades in the other classes are so bad. I gotta pull the grade point average up. And I said, what if I memorized a poem for this class? And he said, that's not impressive. And I said, well, what if it was like 6 pages long? And I did it. Like, would that impress him? And I memorized a Gregory Corso poem when I was about 16. Should I get married? Should I be good? Astound the girl next door with my velvet suit and my Faustus hood. Not take her to movies, but to cemeteries, and tell her of werewolf tongues and forked clarinets, and desire her and kiss her and all the preliminaries, and she going just so far. And I understanding why, not getting angry, saying, you must feel, it's beautiful to feel. And then I lean her against an old crooked tombstone the entire night, the constellations in the sky. Right? And it goes on and on and on and on. And but so,
first of all,
I got my whole grade kicked up because of that.
Racy poem for 16, I like it.
Well, I wasn't just memorizing it for the class.
I got
That poem came in handy.
I'm gonna pull this out, maybe
yeah.
Oh my God. So let's talk about your projects, man. You got some cool stuff going on. So you have 2 very different projects out.
I do.
One is The Lowdown. Tell us a little about that one.
All right, The Lowdown is a show made by Sterling Harjo, who made this brilliant show, Reservation Dogs, and we shot it down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'm crazy proud of it. I play a wild gonzo journalist who keeps trying to tell truth to power and keeps getting punched in the face.
Yeah. Wow, that's relatable. That was a look at his new film, Blue Moon. It's in select cities now and in theaters nationwide on Friday. You play a very famous songwriter in this, but I actually I knew his catalog, but I didn't know his name.
Rodgers and Hart,
No.
It's an incredible story because, you know, Richard Rodgers is one of the greatest musicians of the 20th century, and he had this unbelievable 25-year period with Rodgers and Hart. And they did all these Broadway shows with songs that turned into jazz standards. But Hart was the lyricist, the character I play in that clip that you just saw. And he really struggled with alcohol. He really struggled with being on time, having his act together, and it was driving Richard Rodgers crazy. And he broke up with him, and then he started working with Hammerstein. And they went on to have one of the greatest careers in musical theater, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if Lennon and McCartney broke up and one of them went on to do a band bigger than the Beatles and the other one died.
Yeah.
That's how...
I know the ending is so, it's I mean, I think in the artistic community, I feel like, unfortunately, you hear about it more often than you want to, but like, it was kind of sad how it ended.
Well, he's an incredibly sensitive soul, right?
Which
so
artists are?
He feels, you know, he wrote, for those people who don't know, he wrote Blue Moon, My Funny Valentine, a million great songs that you've heard of. But he always wrote, it's very funny and very heartbreaking at the same time. That was his peculiar gift, and that's the way he saw the world. And and he paid a price for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, though, you directed, I want to talk about this, a film on Merl Haggard, which is cool. It's Highway 99.
Highway 99.
Yeah. The double album. So have you always been into Merl Haggard?
I have, and I kind of felt he's one of our greatest songwriters, and he's kind of going a little out of fashion. I feel his
I grew up on him. So.
You know, well, in Fort Worth, well, I'm older than you, but in the 80s, he was king. And I felt, I guess before the last election, I kind of realized that no matter who won the election, half the country was going to be despondent. There was no meeting ground. And I started thinking about Merl Haggard, and he was never left or right. He always kind of wrote from his point of view, and he was a real humanist. And I thought that he would be a great artist to revisit right now, no matter what happened with the election. You know, that he would be a great person for us to all look at and see that there's a lot of places to meet, and to make sure you don't fall in anybody else's line, and that you're always thinking for yourself.
And keep the conversation alive instead of shutting down. Like I feel.
And that's what you know, in his first 10 years of his career, he was the new Woody Guthrie, and they were playing "Mama Tried" at Woodstock, and then he wrote "Okie from Muskogee," and all of a sudden he was the voice of the silent majority. And then Nixon started doing him, but then in the 70s he's writing songs about civil rights, and about immigration, and you never knew what side of the aisle he was going to be on. He always just kind of Thought-provoking from a humanist point of view.
Yeah.
He really liked poor people.
Which as a poor person when I was younger, people like. They need a voice, you know, so nobody's speaking for them. Yeah, I feel that as well. I also feel like it's so important. It's a cool thing because nowadays I feel like people are like, oh, you have a spotlight, there's a responsibility with that, say something, but then at the same time it's like, shut up, just because you do this doesn't mean you should have a voice. There's always that. So I feel like that is why you're right. It is an important thing to have someone like that speaking about it, talking about it, because art, I feel like, and I think we'll agree on this, is like the one area, like when I go to when I'm performing a concert, you look out and like, I'm like, where would all these people be in the same place? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like art sometimes does connect people in a way.
Particularly music.
And progress society.
Particularly music. Music, I mean, you know, at your shows, at a Willie Nelson show, we can think of countless artists.
Especially Willie Nelson show. Everyone's feeling really good.
I
love you, man.
But I do think it's really, music is the one place that really, sports can do it too.
Yeah.
Can make us see that, oh, right, I'm bigger than my point of view on this one particular subject, and I have a lot in common with other people.
And I feel like you listen to things a little differently when it's movies or music or just a form of art.
And you know, particularly I think for men, I don't know exactly why I say that, but I know that a lot of us have a lot of trouble expressing ourselves and expressing our feelings, or allowing new thought or sensitive thought to come in, and music is a place that I think men really let that happen, and I think it has a real healing power.
Yeah, well, especially
but I'm not
where
trying to
we're
shut you
from.
Out.
No, but where we're from, I feel like that's true too. It was like guys were like,
I know my father and I can talk about country music with an intimacy that we don't really talk about other subjects.
Yeah,
you know, and certain song can unlock a conversation about something we wouldn't normally touch on.
Powerful. We're so lucky to be in the artistic community. It's such a cool job. Yeah. Ethan has had many memorable roles in many films, but how well can he remember what was happening in a scene based on only a photo from that scene? I knew you were dying to know, so it's time to find out with Scenes and Stories. Scenes and Stories. I love it. We're going to show a photo of a scene, and Ethan will tell us what memories come to mind when he sees it. So here's the first. Dead Poets Society. This is one of my favorites, man. What do you remember about that scene?
Well, I remember that Robin Williams was, as you can imagine, he would not stop trying to make us laugh all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he would never stay on script, and he would always, and he was one of those comedians that if he was here with you right now, and one person wasn't laughing, he would find that person and direct all the jokes.
I'm gonna win you over.
Yeah, he just like psychically could intuit all that. And my character was supposed to be incredibly shy and withdrawn, and I was really trying to be a good actor. And I just vowed to myself that my character would not find any of this stuff funny.
Oh, no.
And so I just I stonewalled him, and he would lay into me all day long, and it was so painful. I'd be chewing the inside of my cheek out because I'd got it in my head that if I laughed, I wasn't a good actor. And I would, because this was my huge break, you know, this is a huge job. It's like, I'm gonna do a good job. And I would get mad at him. Why is he trying to ruin my life? And he just, you know, John Wayne impersonations would come out, just ridiculous things that would come out of his mouth that were so funny. But then when the movie was over, I just assumed he hated me. And he got me my first agent.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
he was like, I couldn't break, let's help this one. I couldn't break it.
I like this kid. So I felt good about that.
Oh, that's cool. It's such a great cast, too. Okay, next one, Before Sunrise. Oh, look how happy. That's fake. Anyway.
It's not fake. Yeah, see what that says more about you that you think that's fake.
For sure does, Ethan.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure does. Just kidding. What comes to mind?
Summer '94 in Vienna. Julie Delpy is at that time, I'd never felt like such a dumb American. She'd worked with all these genius films. She was only 24 too, and she'd worked with all these brilliant European directors, and she was so smart, and she was smoking cigarettes, and you know, and she'd tell me, you know, you probably think Raiders of the Lost Ark is the best film ever made. And I was like,
First of all, it's a great film.
And she would roll her eyes and be like, what don't I understand?
Yeah.
But no, that was an amazing summer. Best summers of my life.
I do, and I'm kidding, man. That is what you want. That's relationship goals. That like smile she has and the whole moment. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, I'm just trying to redeem myself.
Yeah.
Might be lying. Next is The Black Phone. The Black Phone.
What I remember from that is the first time I ate small children, I found the taste peculiar.
But kind of like chicken.
No, I had this theory. This might sound a little depressing, but when I started acting, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if on your obituary you had a really great film in every genre of filmmaking? You know, so like I think about things like that. I want to, when it's midnight and you want to sit with your friends and watch a scary movie, I want to have a great one for you. You know, when you want in the mood for a romance, when you're in the mood for a Western, when you're in the mood for a thriller, cop picture, you know, whatever it is. I think I was...
It's also boring when you get typecast. You want to do different things. I'm sorry.
You
want to do different things.
You can do better than that.
Yes,
okay?
I know. That's what my mom says.
I really feel like a dad now.
Yeah,
Come on.
I
And,
know.
I think that when I was younger, I was insecure about whether I would be able to change much as an actor. I didn't see myself as that kind of shape-changing actor. But one thing I could do is I love all kinds of movies. So I thought that I could play inside these different genres, and that would help me be a better actor.
Yeah. Well, it was so good. There's another one out right now.
Yeah, it's coming at you.
You continue to love to eat kids. So that was Scenes and Stories. Everybody, give it up for Ethan Hawke! Blue Moon is in select cities now and in theaters nationwide Friday. You can also see Ethan in the film Black Phone 2 in theaters now, and in the Lowdown. New episodes are Tuesdays on FX and the next day on Hulu.